Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at player props here on a Friday in the NBA. Going to feel pretty good about these as we come into this 8-0 in our last two nights, betting on these player props with you guys. Also have best bets up as we do each and every weekday. So make sure you are subscribed to that page and keep following along with us all season and into this postseason as we're nearly there in the home stretch of the end of the regular season here. Also want you to head to thelines.com and use everything that we're putting up on the site right now to help you make those bets. March Madness in full swing. So plenty of stuff coverage there and the NBA as well, including that player props finder that we have under the NBA tab on the site. Use that to make sure you're getting the best juice and odds available to you from all of these books that are offering us bets this season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first NBA player prop tonight.
Yeah, don't fade Cade. We've taken Cade Cunningham over 32.5 points, rebounds, and assists, which I thought his props were kind of low across the board, particularly the points at 20.5 if you want to just go there. But the Celtics, obviously a fantastic team, but on the road here with Drew Holiday ruled out and then Jalen, Tatum, Porzingis, Horford, all questionable, they'll probably sit two of the four guys. If we follow the pattern here, they're trying to space out the rest a little bit here, so they're not sitting their whole lineup at any point. But they've been resting guys, especially against the Pistons, as early as Monday. So a lot of minutes for Peyton Pritchard, who's a fantastic offensive player, but not going to be nearly the same defense as Drew Holiday. And Derek White should still be out there, should be on Cade a fair amount. But, Cade, I'm just banking on the usage here for the most part. And the fact that he's stepped up against Boston. He has one dud in 5 meetings, but the other 4, 26 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. And since the All-Star break, he's kind of been asked to just let's see what we have in you. I won't say unleashed because what are the Pistons doing here in terms of trying to win, but nearly 23 points, 5.5 rebounds, 8.5 assists. And the Pistons continue to close up shop with in terms of guys not playing anymore. Fontecchio, Alcer Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Stanley Amude, and Quentin Grimes are the guys ruled out here. So without, with a couple of those guys in the lineup against Indy 2 nights ago, Cade had a 40% usage rate. He had 23 points on 22 field goal attempts. So not efficient at all, but still got you these numbers. And that's what he's averaging since the break, 23, 5, and 8 on 32% usage. It's kind of a Super Bowl for the Pistons, I guess, is just we know they didn't even play Cade at Boston. They know they had no chance in that second matchup at Boston. But now home, plus 14. I would rather take the plus 14 than the Celtics here. I think it's a young team that is plucky enough to try to give their best effort against, what's going to be an undermanned Celtics squad that's resting, that's chilling, that doesn't take you seriously, and they're going to come out and try to ride Cade to a respectable performance.
Yeah, I'm with it. I was with Cade last game. It's really about, can they just hang around long enough to have a reason to play him in the fourth quarter? As long as they can do that, then I do love the Cade stuff as well. If you looked at a first half bet for Cade, also, I think that is one area you could attack what he's doing, just because of the fact that we have seen him but I just get chosen to sit after a while because of the fact that they're just not even in the game. They can't even pretend there's a reason to play him. But at the same time, he's a young dude who's missed a lot of time in his young career. And if you want to establish him as one of the best young up-and-coming players and a former number 1 overall pick, then yeah, you got to get him in his minutes in there. And so I'm hoping that they can hang in this one enough to keep this bet viable. It's super helpful that it's not in Boston. Otherwise, it would terrify me even more. But I have been targeting, to your point, I've also been targeting the young backups for this Boston team pretty often, including Peyton Pritchard, who's been crushing, as we know. And now you've even got some Derek White love in there without Drew Holiday. But we need this to be somewhat of a game, and then we can take some of these overs. And we need this to be the no blowout league instead of the National Blowout Association that it's been for basically the last 3 or 4 days. And I think we can get there with this pesky Detroit team right now. So let me go to an under for Toby Harris, and I'm going to take all 3 props in a combo: 26.5 PRA, for Tobias. I do think like the 16.5 points. I mean, we've seen that, right? Remember when like Joel was first out and this was at like 20.5 points for Tobias, and then he's been just found out as a fraud, to be honest with you. And like all those years that people were like, how come this guy who puts up near all-star numbers keeps getting traded in the middle of seasons? And it's like, because he's a good stats, bad team player. He's not a very helpful play within the rotation and make your team actually decent kind of player. And we've seen that as Tyree. He just maybe it's Maxey. Maybe he's not a fit, but Maxey ain't going anywhere, and his usage ain't going anywhere, and the style of play that they have ain't going anywhere. And it's almost like if there's no big dude down low to feed Tobias his wide open corner threes and baseline shots, then he's got nothing. Right. And that's what we've seen basically since Joel went down. If you look at the last 15 games for Tobias, he's gone over his PRA number there just 6 out of 15 times. If you look at the teams that he's been doing that against, it's teams that definitely are a little bit more wide open on defense, especially around the corners and around the basket as well. Teams like Dallas, he's gone over against Washington, right? Like we haven't really seen him do it much in the games where there's actual competition. So with the percent, like hitting this number at such a low clip coming in, now we know he's going to be defended by Taurean Prince. That was his main coverage opponent last time. He also got defended by LeBron James for the other half of that game last time, where it was a complete blowout in favor. I believe the 76ers came through it and just crushed that game with Joel in there. Not going to be the case necessarily this time for Tobias, where they're going to need him to basically be taking guys one-on-one. And I don't feel good with individual defensive ratings that we've seen from Taurean Prince, who's picked it up, by the way. The first half of the season, there was a little bit of like worry, like he was struggling and that he didn't have the quickness anymore to guard certain guys. But then he just stopped getting put on guards. And now his matchups have been a lot more forwards. And we've seen this Lakers team do much better against small forward, power forward. There's sort of a hybrid going on there for Tobias for sure. At this point, I would call him a power forward. And with the understanding that like Paul Reed is also a power forward and he's getting a good amount of minutes down there. So you kind of need two power forwards. And so you see him playing a little bit closer to the basket. Still not a matchup that I'm going to like. If he's going to be down there against LeBron, where he's playing in the defense for LA, that's going to be trouble. I do think that this one it's not necessarily ripe for a blowout, but if you're going to beat this team against the Lakers, which we talk about in the best bets video, which we don't think that the Sixers are necessarily going to win, but I do think that they're going to hang around on offense a bit more, and that's going to be predicated on starting things from above the break with Maxey playing in the pick and roll, and that's a play that we've seen Tobias Harris do almost nothing on. Like he's just basically standing in the corner waiting, and that corner 3-point defense for the Lakers has been good enough. It's pretty obvious that the 76ers are taking a good amount of their shots from there. Over their last like 5 games, they've increased that anyway, and the Lakers are about 8th best in terms of limiting corner 3 field goal percentage, and in terms of the amount of shots that they're even giving up from the corner as well. They're just a team full of big wings at all positions, and Anthony Davis, right, with D'Lo in there as really the main dude who you consider like a guard. But even Austin Reeves, he has upped that D as well. So I just don't think Tobias is a dude that you would really want to back in any situation here. So at 26.5 PRA, I'm happy to take it under.
Yeah, I mean, Andy's coming off a 3-game absence with a nagging ankle injury, so we don't even know if he's going to be like a full go, but he was killing them in the negative sense before he went down, right? He's a minus 49 on the road since the All-Star break, averaging, under 15 points per game with a 102 offensive rating. So I have no problem fading him, even in a matchup against the Lakers, who sometimes fall asleep on defense, but I think they match up pretty well against him and not well against Maxey, who's in a bounce back spot. So good point. Gonna ride Santi Aldama again here. I can't not take him after he goes 27-9-4 against Golden State when all we needed was 21.5 PRA. So I'll go points and rebounds here. 22.5 points rebounds is good odds against the Spurs here. We know Luke Kennard and several other guys, 10 guys, are out for the Grizz. And Desmond Bane now out. So we've seen his last 3, Santi averaged 19-8 on great splits, 49, 44%. And that's 19% usage, but it spiked to 27% when Bane exited. Him and Triple J and Gigi combined for 90 points against your Warriors. And I think at least the way the matchups start, we'll see Wemby on Triple J and probably Jeremy Sohan on Santi, and Sohan has a 118.5 defensive rating, which is obviously much higher than Wemby and just not the same kind of individual defender. So I don't think, no matter how well he's been playing, Santi Aldama is going to be the focal point of anyone's defense. But he is playmaking for this extremely shorthanded Grizzlies team. I talked about it 2 nights. He had the number 2 like passes made and potential assists behind Luke Kennard, who was out last time. He also has the number 1 rebound chance of anyone playing significant minutes, and Triple J is way down the list in terms of that. So not they're depending on Santi to rebound on the defensive end. Spurs give up the 4th most defensive rebounds per game. It's been even higher lately as they've struggled against some good defenses. But Santi, 8 rebounds per 36 minutes. When he gets 30 to 39 minutes, he averages, 26 PRA, solid. But even in 32 minutes in two against the Spurs this year, 26 points, rebounds, despite shooting 29% from 3. Now he's shooting a little bit better. And Spurs, they're limiting 3-pointers made, but I think in this particular matchup, if he doesn't get Wemby on him, he'll be the guy off the ball getting those catch and shoot opportunities, and there's nobody else to shoot. That's our theory here down the stretch is who do you take when there's nobody else?
Yeah, and Santi is actually important to like the totals that you would pick if you want to pick a Memphis, to cover all these spreads that they're getting as the underdog down the stretch. Like I wouldn't touch this if I wouldn't touch the Grizzlies if I don't have Santi, Triple J, and Desmond Bane. Like I cannot trust them without those 3 dudes, and that tells you how important he is to this team. And he is a dude that will be on this squad next year. That's kind of how I look at the Grizzlies, is like who's going to be playing next year. And Santi Aldama is a legit NBA player. We don't know about a bunch of the other guys, but I'm with you on the numbers that he's been posting. And yeah, this Spurs team is bad against everybody down low. Wemby is going to get 4 or 5 blocks, and they're still going to give up a ton of points in the paint and a ton of points to the opposing big men. And Santi Aldama is basically the center at this point. I guess Trey Jemison's been in there as a little bit more of a big man because Santi is a little bit more versatile, obviously, than he is. But yeah, what he wants to do against the Spurs team, I think he's going to be totally fine, crashing the glass, hitting threes. And I do think that this prop has yet to catch up to the fact that he's somebody that you can actually rely on playing and scoring the majority of the points here for this Memphis team down the stretch. So I'm going to go back to another Warrior and another Warrior power forward, but we're getting props here for Trace Jackson Davis because he's basically come in to bogart the same amount of minutes as any other of the big men that are playing for the Warriors right now. Even Draymond, who you, I think, correctly called, like this is not a Draymond game nearly as much as the next couple gross ones against Eastern Conference teams that are going to, be a lot more of a threat down low for this Warriors team to play against. So we'll take TJD to go over 17.5 points and rebounds. He's gone over in every game this season that he's gotten 25 minutes. And it's been a lot more recently, that he's gotten that many minutes. 4 of his last 5, he's gotten at least 25 minutes over in all of those, obviously, because I just told you he's done it 100% of the time. And back to the same concept of like what he does is exactly where Indiana is weakest. It's going to the rim, attacking the basket. That's all he does. He's on offense. He's just a roll man, right? And I don't want to call him just a roll man. Like he's just a really, really good roll man. And he's been unlocked on the second unit by Chris Paul. And that's actually led to him getting minutes down the stretch. He played so well in that last game against Memphis for Golden State. They just kept him in the fourth quarter instead of bringing back Jonathan Kuminga. And we're like, no, but you're good, JK. We don't really even need you right now. We have somebody else doing a lot of the same stuff as you. I still think Kuminga gets in there for about 28 minutes. And this one is a pretty close game. Obviously, it was a little bit helpful that Memphis game wasn't really close at that point in time. And they felt comfortable leaving TJD in there, but I still think that he's earned like 23 to 25 minutes moving forward, and the way that he is, like I said, playing as that roll man, he is the most utilized dude at the roll man position when they run that PNR. About 20% of the time that he's on the floor on offense, they're running that play with him. That's really, really good because this Indiana team gives up the 5th most points per possession to the roll man in that spot, which is good for a bottom 10 in terms of the most points per game, because it's not even like they're getting that much. They are getting a good amount of possessions against them in that pick and roll for Indy, but it's also because they play so many possessions, and this thing is at about a 240 total. So I do think there's going to be a few more possessions than you might be used to otherwise, but it's the same concept of like they're just giving up everything at the rim. Second most field goals attempted down there, or most field goals attempted down there. Second most made down there. Really bad field goal percentage allowed as well. Really good if you're the offense against them. So yeah, I mean, everything that he does is exactly what you like for him to be able to handle. And it's comes back down to the minutes. And I do like your perception that like this is one where you play the young guys. It's not the second leg of a back to back. It's getting ahead of a lot of a lack of rest that's coming for them against really physical teams down low. Maybe you keep him in there at times but I do think he's way more of a reserve guy against the Magic and the Miami Heat, rather than putting him up and just being like, okay, Bam's your responsibility now. Go handle Bam Adebayo. Like that's not what you're going to do with him. But you're okay saying like, yeah, go run up and down the floor with Obi Toppin and Aaron Nesmith. Like we have no problem with you doing that, or even guarding Miles Turner, who's not exactly a back to the basket center that we're worried about backing you down, or cerebral like Bam is, for instance, right? So yeah, there's going to be other times to keep him off the floor. This is a good opportunity for the Rook to get some minutes and get over 17.5 points and rebounds.
Yeah, and I mean, continuing with that, it might not be a Draymond game, but it's definitely not a Kevon Looney game, who's played all 6 minutes in 2 of his last 3. As I think the front office, the fan base, everybody's like, let's see more TJD here. Like, we understand, like, this 2 timeline thing's got to get a little more aggressive with the younger timeline. So we want to see this young center, Kevon Looney, on his way out. Certainly, the game is kind of passing by. At least these matchups, like when you play a team like the Pacers, it's not going to be fitting to have an old school center like that. But he will be needed against, Rudy Gobert, Bam, and the Magic in their next 3 on the road as the Warriors take a harder trip here. So, as soon as I saw props here for the Rook, I was like, yep, let's go with this guy.
Yeah, as long as Kuminga doesn't take all the minutes from him, but this is a great matchup, like you said. Kevon Looney's going to have a statue built for him somewhere near that Golden State War. Like he is such a fan favorite, it's absurd. But he's also had terrible hips since he came into the league, and it's been about he's played 82 games now in like 2 seasons. He's on his way out. I don't want to say necessarily there's still room for guys who are flat footed and don't necessarily play above the rim. It's just you still have to be able to run up and down the floor really well. So yeah, he's slowly on his way out, maybe of the league in the nearest future. And TJD and Kuminga are clearly the future down low for that squad. So that is all the time though that we have for you in Play Up Props. Continue to follow along. Check out the best bets video that we have up for you as well. We look to stay hot here to end the week. Come back for you guys on Monday. Until we see you then, happy betting.